Hey everybody, I'm Stephen Daniels, and I'm here in the undisclosed location of the actual Talk of Santa Clarita studios. I'd like to welcome you to the debut of the Talk of Santa Clarita video edition, or more specifically, the pilot episode. And as you can see, as per usual, I dressed for the special occasion. The Talk of Santa Clarita is the original podcast exclusively about Santa Clarita and the surrounding valley. In the future, if we find there's a demand to do more, we will be releasing a video version of the latest podcast when we can. These video podcasts will be available on the Talk of Santa Clarita and Radio Free Santa Clarita YouTube channels. We're still doing some maintenance to the channels, but if you're here, we encourage you to go ahead and subscribe. However, the link to the videos will always be available at thetalkofsantaclarita.com. And as always, if you just want to listen to the audio of the podcast, we are still available on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud.com. This video podcast is a grand experiment, which means we haven't worked out all the kinks just yet. And right now our videos are far from perfect, as you can see. However, I do see us getting better as we go along. We ask that you be patient, and as we are just a dog and pony show with neither a dog or a pony. But on to business. This is episode 110 with guest Kevin DeLeon. Kevin DeLeon is the state senator from the 24th Senate District in Los Angeles County. He was the state Senate President pro tempore from 2010 until this past March. He is also a Democratic candidate for United States Senator challenging incumbent Dianne Feinstein. The senator is an interesting and charming person to meet and speak with. He makes no bones about the fact that he's a progressive. In the state Senate and Assembly, he has championed gun control measures, clean energy, and immigration rights. In particular, he introduced State Bill 54, the California Values Act, which ensures that no state or local resources are diverted to fuel any attempt by the federal government to carry out mass deportations, as well as making sure California schools, hospitals, and courthouses are safe spaces for everyone in the community. DeLeon has been running for a U.S. Senate on a platform similar to the one he championed in state government. He believes in Medicare for all, clean energy, immigration reform, and a $15 minimum wage. Like I said, he isn't shy about being a progressive. And because Senator Feinstein has a reputation for being a moderate and compromising when she feels necessary, that's not a condemnation, by the way. It's just simply an observation. DeLeon's platform has garnered a considerable amount of attention and support for Democratic activists. He recently secured the endorsement of the California Democratic Party, as well as Santa Clarita's local Democratic club, the Democratic Alliance for Action. Challenging Dianne Feinstein is no easy task. But Senator DeLeon has been doing the hard groundwork for his campaign, which has included several visits to the Santa Clarita Valley. This is how the opportunity to interview him became available. I met with the senator this past Sunday afternoon in Los Angeles. He was friendly and willing to answer any question I asked. The only issue was the time. I had planned for my usual hour and something podcast with a huge list of questions, but to my surprise, the senator had been informed by his communications director that the podcast would only be for a half hour, which left me scrambling a bit as to choosing which questions to ask. So of course I didn't get to ask near the amount of things I'd wanted to. Still, Senator DeLeon was gracious with his time, and I do appreciate him doing the show. As always, we do not edit these podcasts, so what happens happens, what is said, which of course doesn't make for perfection every time, but is always an open and honest conversation. And just to let everyone know, the Talk of Santa Clarita is presented as a public service as part of Radio Free Santa Clarita, a 501c3 nonprofit media organization dedicated to serving the Santa Clarita Valley. This podcast and other productions from Radio Free Santa Clarita are fueled by your generous donations, which are tax deductible to the fullest extent the law will allow. To donate, you can go to radiofreesantaclarita.org/donate. So with that out of the way, let's get talking.
Radio Free Santa Clarita presents The Talk of Santa Clarita, a podcast about issues involving Santa Clarita and the surrounding valley. Episode 110, Democratic candidate for the United States Senate, Kevin DeLeon. And now, let's see what the Talk of Santa Clarita is.
And remember, this is for posterity, so be honest.
Okay, Senator, thanks for taking the time to do this today. It's a real privilege for you to take the time. I know you're a busy guy, so.
Oh, thank you. On the contrary.
You're not busy at all?
I've been quite busy as of late, no doubt about that. But it's always a pleasure.
I've got tons of questions for you, but we're going to try and do this.
Few answers.
Few? Just a few? Okay, well, I'm going to do it in multiple choice. We'll see if that makes it quicker for you. But I just...
Well, we can do yes, no.
Yes, no, okay. I wanted you to just tell me a little bit about, I mean, you're obviously, you've made it very known that you're a progressive as a Democrat. But I'm curious about your background. Why are you a progressive? What is it about... why was it how you grew up, or was there a turning point in your life that said I want to be a progressive, or I mean, why are you a progressive?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I've always been who I am. Mm-hmm. Way before the term progressive mm-hmm. has sort of kind of been the how can I say. The tour de force, if you will, mm-hmm. in the political space in the United States. Yeah. Even way before I even heard of Bernie Sanders, these are values that I've espoused. In fact, I would quite frankly say there's a lot of folks with these values, again, before the term progressive has been coined in a very popular way. It's very simple, what informs my decision making is how I grew up and the world, the prism, and how I view the world. Inequities for those who have little or nothing at all. Mm-hmm. Ask the reason why. Why is it that way? Is it systemic issues? Are there cultural issues? Are they political issues? Are they linguistic issues? What are the barriers, the obstacles that prevent certain folks from progressing, from accessing real opportunities to succeed in the United States of America as opposed to others? Mm-hmm. And are there barriers that have been put in place, whether they are practical barriers of life, or whether they're statutory barriers, put in there by law. So, growing up as the youngest child of a single immigrant mother with a third-grade education, my mother worked her fingers to the bone cleaning homes of other people in a very wealthy enclave in San Diego, La Jolla, California, mm-hmm. with the ocean panoramic views of the Pacific. And it was there that I learned the value of hard work. It was there that I learned about my mother's very strong work ethic, mm-hmm. A single mother who put the roof over my head, the rent, who put the food on the table and the clothes on my back. So that informs a lot of my decision making in terms of trying to narrow and hopefully, I don't know if in my lifetime, but sometime in the future, to eliminate altogether the gross inequities that exist in our society, in the wealthiest state and the wealthiest nation in the world, giving every American, giving every Californian a real opportunity to succeed, regardless of the hue of your skin, regardless of who you love, regardless of which God you pray to, regardless of where you come from. I think that's what's really important. Did
you always want to? I mean, was politics from a young age? Were you always going? I want to get into politics to try and make change, or I mean, were there other ideas that you had as far as wanting to make that change? Or
well, it's funny you asked that. You're actually the first person who's ever asked me that question in that way. From every mainstream media outlet mm-hmm. or any other outlet mm-hmm. altogether, the answer is no. Mm-hmm. I never pined to be an elected official, a politician. Mm-hmm. I was never a fellow. I was never a congressional intern. Mm-hmm. I never worked for a politician. I was an organizer. I was a community organizer. I taught ESL, English as a second language. Mm-hmm. I taught U.S. history, civics, citizenship to those who would become full-fledged mm-hmm. Americans, to adults. And I never thought about being part of the electoral, political system mm-hmm. As an elected official. And I thought to myself, we actually thought way back then, when it was a really, really ugly, very similar to what's happening today, but at a statewide level, Proposition Prop 187.
I remember.
That really opened my eyes, mm-hmm. and what I saw were politicians, and quite frankly, across the political spectrum, not just exclusively Republicans, but mm-hmm. overwhelmingly Republicans, But there was a handful of Democrats too who were, because the economy was in a deep recession. The Cold War was no longer. The Soviet Union was dismantling. The Department of Defense here in the United States was shrinking their budget. So as a result, the transition to a new economy is always really rocky. It's always really bumpy. And there was a really deep economic recession that was largely regional. It impacted the whole state, but mostly here in Southern California.
Right.
And as a result, a lot of folks lost their jobs, lost their mortgages, homes were foreclosed. And it was a very difficult time for a lot of folks in Southern California. And as a result, what you saw and what I witnessed were politicians that were utilizing certain communities as a scapegoat, as an economic, political scapegoat, to sort of band-aid over the realities of what was happening. At a global level, you had the Cold War was over, the Soviet Union no longer existed, Department of Defense was shrinking their budget, the Pentagon, and all of a sudden aerospace industry, and many folks who had good high-wage paying jobs, a good union job, perhaps not a 4-year bachelor's degree, but a community college or straight from high school into a good union job, were losing their jobs.
Yeah.
And that's difficult and painful. But I also witnessed the shallowness of politicians. And specifically to your question, there was a politician, a Democrat in this case, who represented the area that I represent today as an assembly member, Ivy League educated, West Point Democrat, who actually co-authored the measure along with another Democrat in the California State Senate to take away driver's license from immigrants. And it was a very clumsy political attempt by the Democrats to say, hey, we're tough on immigrants too.
Yeah.
Perhaps we're not as tough and draconian as Republicans, but we can be tough too.
Right.
And as a result, you had so many folks who lost their ability to drive lawfully, but still continue to drive nonetheless, you know. And that's what really sparked my idea of maybe perhaps we should get involved in the electoral arena and become policymakers. But be mindful about one thing. That was sort of kind of like pie in the sky.
What year was this? What year is this?
This was 1994, 1995, 1996.
Okay.
This was pie in the sky.
I just keep thinking about what you're describing about the situation with people being laid off and the change in the economy and things. I think of the Michael Douglas character in Falling Down. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen the movie?
Is this the one where he's a very wealthy man?
He was a defense engineer, and then he's laid off.
Oh, is he the guy who goes, off the
goes
grid
ballistic.
completely?
Yeah, it seems like
angry at the world.
Yeah, angry at the world. It's
all
just,
these global factors impacting him.
And the reason I bring all that up is it seemed to me what you're describing is it seems like that they were saying they were tough on immigration. It's almost like what we see today is there's a tendency when there's a problem to point the direction at somebody else or say that they're tough on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was that kind of the situation, you think? Or
it was a situation.
Yeah.
I think it's a lack of honesty
Yeah.
On part of politicians. I think that through the global, financial gyrations, and now that we're a more globalized economy, you get a lot of advantages, but you also get a lot of negatives that come with that. And with global trade and jobs being outsourced or offshored, overseas, elsewhere, you get lower consumer, items, but at the same time we lose jobs too. So we have to figure out how we balance this out. I think that there's a lot of dishonesty on part of politicians who won't be honest and direct with their constituents and say, this is what's going on. These are the solutions. Maybe it's going to take us a little time, but if we stick to these solutions, I believe that we can actually move policies that improve the human condition, which means a high wage paying job, which may mean health care, which may mean debt-free college education, which may mean immigration reform, which may mean better environmental policies, a whole array of things across the board. But I think that lack of authenticity, and then therefore trying to figure out how we pinpoint and assign blame elsewhere is what a lot of Americans dislike truly. Unfortunately, sadly, let me say this, that in today's body politic, we've seen a lot of scapegoating taken to the highest level we've ever witnessed, at least in modern political history, of folks who are in real economic pain, no doubt about it, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in West Virginia, here in Lancaster and Palmdale and Riverside, Central Valley, and elsewhere. And we see the same politics being utilized, pinpointing, let's say, fictionally, Jose, who works as a sous chef, in Santa Monica. It's because of his fault that someone in Lancaster lost perhaps their job in the aerospace industry, which when you look at the nexus, it's ridiculous. It's comical. But unfortunately, folks do tend to believe that when politicians say that.
I think it's easier, you know what I mean, to put the blame somewhere else than it is to just accept the fact that there's problems with, the economic situation in general. I mean, that, like you said, the sous chef is not the person that's causing the engineer to lose his job or whatever. How do you reach, the Trump supporters or the people that see that as a problem, that are blaming the sous chef, or how do you talk to them about things like, free college and health care for all, and get them to understand your viewpoint? The polls are showing, that it looks like a blue wave possibly, but then you hear, well, that's not going to be the case, and everything like that, and it's obviously there has to be some kind of reach to the people that are supporting Trump and his policies. How do you get to them or convince them that what your ideas are better, or are more, or that it's a better way to go? How do you do that?
That's a very good question, and I think that by moving policies that truly improve the human condition for all individuals, regardless of who you are and where you come from, is really key. Now, on the political spectrum, whether you're on the left or you're on the right or points in between, I do believe strongly that if you move policies that have a huge positive economic impact on everyday American, that we can really lift everybody up as opposed to pitting one group against another. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Up in Lancaster, there's a new assembly plant. It is BYD, Build Your Dreams. This assembly plant now employs roughly about close to 1,000 individuals who are either A, unemployed, or B, underemployed in the Antelope Valley region. This is a plant that did not exist a few years ago. Just sometime last year or a year before, I was there for the ribbon cutting ceremony. What they do at this assembly plant is they assemble electric vehicles, specifically UPS delivery vans, double-decker red buses to export to the UK and elsewhere, public transportation buses to be sold to public transportation districts up and down the state of California. This assembly plant located itself to Lancaster because of the climate change policies of the state of California, specifically the legislature. So as a result, when you go apply for a job, you're not asked, hey, did you vote for Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump or Marco Rubio or whomever. We just want to know that you're qualified, you want to work hard, and you want to help get the job done, whatever the mission goals are, whatever the objectives are for BYD. So these are policies that uplift everybody when it comes to climate change policies. In California, we have created 500,000 jobs in the clean energy space. That is 10 times more jobs in the clean energy space in California than there are coal mining jobs in all of America, to put this in context. That's really, really important. So issues like jobs, issues such as healthcare. It's funny because the United States is, I believe, the only nation in the Western world, at least, that highly politicizes the issue of healthcare. Now, whether you're a Trump supporter, a Bernie Sanders supporter, or a Hillary Clinton supporter, healthcare is healthcare. And you want to make sure that you're not bankrupted as a result. You want to make sure that if something happens, God forbid, to you, to your child, to your children, to your parents, that you can get access to quality health care that is not going to put you out the door in debt and bankrupt you. And we spend more money than any other nation in the world, and the health outcomes we have are, quite frankly, disastrous. But again, we politicize the issue of healthcare, where it's social healthcare, or it's the assembly line of the United Kingdom or Canada, and I think that we can reach Trump supporters with meaningful policies that uplift them economically, that uplift their ability to have real opportunities for their children to move on to higher education, if they wish to go on to higher education, a four-year university in a debt-free manner, or let's say maybe go to community college where they can get a good career technical education in the clean energy space. I always was the mindset, if I'm a Republican, if I'm a arch right-wing, ideologically driven Republican, why in the world would I want to pay more money out of my pocket for utilities?
Right.
Why in the world do I want to pay more out of my pocket for gas prices? If we can move towards decarbonizing our grid and the transportation electrification, where we're no longer polluting our air, our children can breathe clean air, we're no longer emitting carbon dioxide, greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, which is making it a hell of a lot hotter. If you think it's hot now, the worrisome thing is that it may be consistently hot like it is today, as opposed to an aberration that this is a really hot day. It may be hot for a while, and that may be a new norm for us. And as a result, we see the devastating wildfires, which used to be seasonal, which are now year-round. This is because of climate change. And I don't mean to be insulting to any Republicans, but the reality is, in this time and space, it happens to be Democrats who believe in facts and science. And that's why we're moving policies to improve the human condition, so we can reduce our utility rates, so we can create high wage paying jobs. And that's why you have Republicans doing everything within their power to stop these types of policies, because they're not so much concerned about the environment or concerned about creating high wage paying jobs, although that has always been their mantra, their so-called narrative. They're in cahoots with the fossil fuel industry, because it's their business model, and it's about the profit margin for their shareholders, not for Trump supporter who has to pay out of his or her pocket to get to point A to point B when they get in their pickup truck, or when they get in their sedan, or whatever they drive, and I think that we can move forward strong, sensible policies that really lift everybody up, and that really also includes Trump supporter. And on the issue of immigration, because I know the immigration issue is very visceral.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I mean, Santa Clarita just recently voted to not be a sanctuary city, which was very controversial by the city council when they did that. And I know you were one of the leaders.
I wrote the bill.
So, do you want to address that about immigration in general and talk about SB 54 a little bit? Or?
Well, I think that on the issue of immigration, I think the United States has always been a nation of immigrants. We're a few generations removed from Ireland, from Scotland, from Wales, from a Scandinavian country, from somewhere in the Pacific Rim, Mexico, Central America, parts of Africa. We have always been a nation of immigrants. And quite frankly, regardless of who occupies the White House today, we'll always continue to be a nation of immigrants. That's just the bottom line. We're a beautiful mosaic, an incredible tapestry. And this has really contributed to the greatness of who we are in the United States of America, that you can have someone with the last name Doyle or O'Connell, someone with the last name of Sanchez, Martinez, someone with the last name of Chong, or Chan, and we're all Americans, and we're all Californians, and that's just a small fraction. I could be here for hours naming, all the different ethnicities and countries, but the issue of immigration is, going back to what I stated earlier, we have actually, I'll state this for the first time, but I think we can all agree, Democrats and Republicans, we have a broken, dysfunctional system that no longer works. That's the bottom line.
Well, I mean, I get on these Facebook pages. Santa Clarita is notorious for its community pages, and a lot of the conservatives are on there. And one of the things they'll say is, "I have no problem with Latinos. I have no problem with immigrants. I have a problem.
Do it the right way.
Yeah, do it legally."
Yeah.
You know, what do you say to them about that? Is it just that the system is broken right now, or?
I can tell you this: I completely understand their frustration,
Yeah.
100%,
Yeah.
and that's why, going back to what I said a few moments ago, we have a dysfunctional system that is completely broken in Washington. So let's take a family who's been here 10, 15, 20 years,
Right.
who has paid their taxes, who obey our laws, who pledge their allegiance to the red, white, and blue.
Right.
Their children already born here. They know no other country but the United States of America. And you tell them, do it the right way. And all they can do is throw up their arms in frustration and say, I would do it the right way, but the Congress in Washington, D.C. has lacked the courage of their convictions and the leadership to do it the right way and actually normalize the legal status of millions of individuals who have been paying their taxes, who are part of the great United States of America. So it's really, I can understand through their perspective how frustrating it can be, but they need to understand also too that it's their members of Congress who've been sitting on their hands for years, if not decades, not doing anything. Doing the right thing, I get it, not doing anything, that's the real culprit. And we have politicians in Washington who have not been doing the right thing. They haven't been doing anything on this issue. So if I hear families too who take a little more perhaps anti-immigrant sort of approach, you know, it says, well, I waited 15 years to become a legal resident. And to which I reply, oh my God, if I were you, I'd be angry too. It shouldn't take you 15 years. What type of background check were you going through?
Right.
What is it? That is like standing in line in the largest bureaucracy that's broken, that's dysfunctional, that's inept. If it's taking you that long, if I were in your shoes, I'd be angry too. So we have a broken immigration system, and we have, quite frankly, in Washington, a bunch of politicians who are cowards, who lack courage to stand up and do the right thing. You know, who either participate or stay quiet on the sidelines while the scapegoating continues and continues, tearing apart at the seams of the greatest country on planet Earth, the United States of America. We have immigrants from all over the world. We have immigrants from all over the United States of America.
Right.
We have a lot of New Yorkers.
Yeah.
We have a lot of folks from the Deep South. We have a lot of folks from the Midwest who fled the Midwest for a particular reason. We have a lot of folks who, they use the word in a very pejorative fashion, Okies, who, because of economic reasons, were expelled, you know, from their own, you know, and environmental reasons. The Dust Bowl, you know, the drought, came looking for an oasis, and they found it in California. So like I said, we're all immigrants, whether we're domestic or global immigrants. So we need the courage of politicians to demonstrate leadership, and as of to date, I don't have the confidence in Washington to move forward a sensible, fair, transparent immigration program that will normalize the status of so many folks who deserve it.
Let me, we're short on time, so I want to just hit on a couple of topics, and then
We can go on a little more if you want.
just, is that all right? Okay,
okay.
I do appreciate. I hate to pin you down like that, but the cameras are rolling. So
Hey,
now one of the again, I'm always intrigued with like a politician like yourself, how you respond to a conservative. Like again, the Facebook boards will complain that the California government itself has too much control. That the idea of the drinking straw law, the gas tax law, that they're inflicting too much control over the way people live their lives. How do you respond to somebody saying that? I mean, that kind of covers a lot of a large ground of all these notes I had for you.
Listen, we're a nation of laws, and we elect our representatives to be our voice, either in Sacramento, in Washington, or in our local city halls. I don't know too much about the prohibiting of the straws, but I have a general idea. I helped write the measure that did away with plastic bags.
Right. Okay.
Because plastic bags were polluting our rivers, our landfills. They were polluting our oceans, and we had to waste taxpayer dollars to pick up all that trash.
Yeah.
So someone's paying the cost, and they are the taxpayers. With regards to the enhancement of the revenue enhancement in terms of of gas,
Yeah.
I can tell you this: you've had politicians on both sides of the aisle. You've had governors on both sides of the aisle who lack the courage of their convictions to do the right thing and adjust that tax 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. All they were doing was kicking that can down the pothole hidden road. And what happened during the course of 2 decades?
Yeah.
Our roads, our infrastructure, our highways, our bridges were deteriorating.
Yeah.
So someone had to pay the cost. Ultimately, the taxpayer pays the cost for that.
But I guess to me, like I think about I was a commuter to Hollywood for years, and that's a 35-mile drive one way.
From where you live,
From,
yes.
from where I live, yes. And I barely made anything. I worked for a homeless shelter. So, I mean, I see that as, okay, I'm paying a lot more just because I have to work
Because you
where I
live
work.
in, you're commuting.
Yeah, but I have to
time
live in
here.
Santa Clarita because I can afford the property up there as opposed to some place in Los Angeles. So it feels like I'm getting I guess what I'm saying is it seems like the gas tax in particular is a burden to people who have to commute that not necessarily are the wealthier class. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I understand completely
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
saying, and I think that's why in areas such as Lancaster, Palmdale, Santa Clarita, areas such as Riverside, San Bernardino, Imperial County, Central Valley areas, we really need to move policies with intentionality, with a sense of purpose to provide for economic growth in these specific areas. If you live in Palmdale, for example, and you have to make the commute downhill, for a couple hours, and you have to do it coming back home too, and you do this 5 days a week, that just wreaks havoc on you mentally, physically. You lose quality time with your loved ones when you get back home to spend so many hours on the road, and therefore also to all your missions into the air are horrific. We need to move policies, like I said, in these areas that provide for economic growth. And I gave you an example of BYD in Lancaster that now employ 1,000 individuals who live in that vicinity. Now, be mindful about one thing: those jobs didn't just appear at a snap of a finger.
Right.
They were located there because of the policies that were created for California. And that's what's really, really key. Politicians across the spectrum, Democrats as well as Republicans, have to move policies with intentionality. The problem with the Congress is that you get a lot of folks who just show up to vote. They just vote. They just vote on bills that are put in front of them, and they just vote. It's not really an innovative place where folks are on the cutting edge and really drive, not even pushing the envelope. I mean, they don't even. I'm a more sort of not push the envelope. I'm more sort of tear the envelope apart completely, and disrupt, the status quo, the establishment authority. When I was the leader of the California State Senate, which, by definition, kind of like makes you, quote unquote, the man, part of the establishment. What I wanted to do as the leader is I still wanted to be disruptive, and I still wanted to defy the establishment authority.
Yeah.
And that's why during my tenure as leader, I moved policies such as raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, equal pay for women doing equal work, the most far-reaching renewable portfolio standard in the history of the country, at least outside of Hawaii, where by the year 2030 we have to generate half of our electricity from renewable sources. The so-called sanctuary state bill, which the idea was to protect hardworking families, mothers and fathers who have been here for so long, and not utilize our local resources. For example, Santa Clarita Police, Simi Valley Police, Thousand Oaks, Lancaster Police, not utilize them as immigration agents, but rather allow them to protect and serve our community members, regardless of where they are. Now, be mindful about one thing. My sanctuary state bill has many provisions. If you're a violent criminal felon, there can be collaboration and cooperation with federal authorities.
Right.
That is largely missed all the time in these big debates because what happened in Simi Valley was very simple. Let me explain to you.
Okay.
It was a political White House operation with the RNC and the GOP statewide and the local Republicans, politicians, who say, you need to move this resolution. Because forget about the legality or the constitutionality of Senate Bill 54. You know, it's not about that through their eyes.
Yeah.
Their eyes, it's about, again, Prop 187, whipping up the hysteria.
Yeah.
You know, providing the narrative, the inaccurate, grotesque narrative that these men are out to burglarize, rape, and pillage, you know, your communities, your suburban neighborhoods. And we should use this to get out the vote. This is what it's about. And again, this way I go back to the lack of courage of politicians who will who go to the lowest common denominator and drive fear as a really viscerally emotional factor that will drive people to the polls to vote for all the wrong reasons, as to say, hey, folks who live in Simi Valley, Santa Clarita, Lancaster, Newhall, Palmdale and elsewhere, let's move policies that uplift them together, to provide safe communities, to provide a cleaner environment, to provide for strong economic growth, helping small businesses, investing in our public school system, what have you, etc. One thing I want to say is that for our public schools, for example, our local tax dollars are utilized for our funding system, the way it works with Prop 98, and I won't bore you with the complexities of how it works. The national government's contribution to higher education and to our K through 12 is very paltry.
Okay.
It's very paltry. So I think we need to change that. As the largest economy in the world, the national government should be investing more money in education. So I don't care if your parents are Republican. I don't care if your parents are Mitt Romney Republicans or diehard Trump supporters. I could care less. I want to make sure that your kids have a real opportunity to go on to higher education, whether it is a four-year university or whether it's community college. Doesn't make a difference to me, as long as they get access to opportunity, and that your income and zip code shouldn't dictate, if you will, the winners and the losers, because ultimately that has an impact on society as a whole.
Okay, we're going to run out of time here, so I just real quick, I want to ask you a couple.
Maybe I've been a little too loquacious.
No. I love what you've been saying. So and I do appreciate you taking the time. Just real quickly, I'm curious: are you a Marvel or DC fan?
I actually like them both.
Okay. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Favorite movie?
Oh, that's a good question. I got a handful of favorite movies. I don't have a favorite movie. The Godfather.
Godfather. Okay.
1 and 2.
Okay.
Not 3.
I like his haircut in the third one.
There was a movie called Amores Perros. It's actually on Netflix by Alejandro Iñárritu.
Okay.
And he's an excellent. He's won a couple of Academy Awards already.
Okay.
There's an English movie called Sexy Beast.
Oh yeah, Sexy Beast with Ben
Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley,
who plays one of
supposed to be great.
Plays a thug.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a great film.
Yeah, it's a fantastic film.
Okay.
I won the equivalent in the UK, the Oscars there. And there's another movie. I can't remember the name. It's a German movie. It was a portrayal of a couple in East Germany, communist Germany, and they were being surveilled by the East German Stasi. And as the East German Stasi was keeping tabs on them, you could see the East German agent Stasi sort of evolve himself to see how much they love culture and arts and music and what kind of life he had, which was just boring and monotonous and rigid. And you had an East German, communist system under the former Soviet Union's control, So I think in the eyes of others, I think it's called, but I'm not quite sure. That's an excellent movie.
Any tattoos?
0.
If you were going to get one, what would it be and where would it go?
You know, if I got a tattoo, it'd either be one on my chest or on my arm. I don't like ankle tattoos.
Yeah.
I see when men have ankle tattoos. I don't get it.
Yeah.
You know, that's just me. I don't get it. I've seen it. And I've seen some buff guys too.
Yeah.
With ankle tattoos. I just don't get it. That's me. To his or her own.
Okay. And the last thing is, do you have a joke for us?
do I have a joke?
Now, your people were supposed to tell you that you were supposed to have a joke to close this out with.
I don't read all my memos.
The truth comes out.
And then, because I have so many to come to me.
Okay. Okay. Don't know?
Do I have any jokes? Does it have to be a political joke?
No, not at all. Anything. I'll take anything. I'll even take a dirty joke.
So it doesn't have to be a political joke?
No, not at all.
Good, because there's been a lot of them that's been getting elected.
There you go.
Bada bing!
Listen, I do appreciate.
Let's say there was 3 men stranded on an island.
Okay.
And they find a lamp with a genie in it. Out comes the genie, and the genie says, "I'm going to grant you each one wish."
I know where this is going. I love this story.
You know where this one is?
I know. I love it.
We'll see where this one is. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
First guy says, "Genie, I want to get off this island, and I want to go back home."
Right.
Wish is granted. Second guy says, "Genie, I too want to get off this island, and I want to go back home. Please send me home."
Yeah.
Wish granted. Third guy says, "Genie, will you please send my friends back to the island because I'm lonely here?" Mm-hmm. And that's a metaphor for the type of politics in Washington, D.C. today. You know, so I don't know if this was the one you were thinking about.
No, I was thinking
this
of
was
a
a
story
metaphor
where the genie gives them a chance of a choice of absolute wisdom or absolute wealth, and the guy chooses absolute wisdom. And then the first question they ask him afterwards is, you know, what are your thoughts? And he goes, "I should have taken the money." So. Okay, I think it's funny, but listen, congratulations on your endorsement of California Democratic.
No, we didn't talk about that. Yeah,
I know.
You. I appreciate that.
And I wish you much luck in the election, and maybe you'll come back again sometime.
Please, I love you. I thank you for coming down.
No, it was
to
my
Los
pleasure,
Angeles.
absolutely. So
I appreciate that.
And thanks to Brett Haddock for camera work. So.
Brett, thanks a lot. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Okay, you take care. Yeah?
Okay,
Bye-bye.
hope you guys enjoyed the talk.
You've been listening to The Talk of Santa Clarita. Listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud.com, YouTube, and Stitcher. Barring a life event getting in the way, a new podcast is available every Tuesday. Questions, comments, and show ideas can be sent to thetalkofsantaclarita@gmail.com. You can also call or text us at 661-505-8672. That's 661-505-8672. Follow us on Twitter at The Talk of SC or on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at The Talk of Santa Clarita. You can also visit our website by going to www.thetalkofsantaclarita.com. This has been a production of Radio Free Santa Clarita Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. To donate, go to radiofreesantaclarita.org/donate. Radio Free Santa Clarita, on the net and on the air, and we're very much aware.
Any questions?